Welcome to our special meeting of council in person and live streamed electronically for Monday, December 8th. Opening of our meeting is our land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge the sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located, and this meeting is being held, is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Bass and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll that the special meeting of council agenda dated December 8th, 2025 be approved as presented this date. All in favor? And that's carried. No disclosure of interest now at any point in time during our meeting. We have no minutes for previous meetings, no business arising. So our first is our delegation, the reason for our meeting today. Peter Paz from Alto, Senior Director of Public and Government Relations. Alto High-Speed Rail Network, please.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about our project, which, as you may know, was officially launched back in February of 2025, when then Prime Minister Trudeau directed that we begin the development of a high-speed rail project connecting Toronto to Quebec City and a number of stations in between, which I'll go into in a few moments. My name is Peter Paz. I'm the Senior Director for Public and Government Relations for Alto within Ontario. I have a counterpart on the Quebec side, and they have a team as well. But we're very excited to talk about the project with you and take some of the questions that you may have. Go to the next slide, please. I just want to start with the problem statement. I think many of us can appreciate first the escalating transportation costs, whether it's gas, whether it's insurance, wear and tear on our cars. We're also seeing in many places that provide public transit increases in fares. It's just getting more and more expensive to move around. And then second, around network capacity, we've all been on the 401, we've been on the 417. It's very slow, it's very congested, and no matter how wide you make highways, they still fill up really quickly. So it's getting harder and harder to move around. There's a lot of productivity lost time. So a lot of dollars are spent in traffic for hardworking Ontarians and Quebecers. And then when we think about disconnected communities, the Toronto-Quebec City corridor produces about 40% of the GDP for the country. It represents 60% of the Canadian population, and we're very far away from one another. The example I love to use is, a young family of four in Montreal. They want to come watch the Jays game, for example. It's a whole weekend trip. Where with a project of a high-speed caliber, it can become a day trip, and that's how you can transform how people move and bring communities closer together. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, the project is designed to connect 7 station areas going from west to east: Toronto, Peterborough, Ottawa, Laval, Montreal, Trois-Rivières, and Quebec City. This was a requirement identified by the federal government when we went through our procurement process. We don't have an alignment. We don't have a route yet, and I'll talk more about how we get to a route in a few moments. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, back in February, high-speed rail was officially introduced. We are looking to achieve speeds of about 300 kilometers an hour at its highest point. We will be building dedicated electrified track, so we won't be sharing track, or we're going to try very, very hard not to share track across the entire corridor, because when you share, you become reliant on signals or other services and what have you. So by having your own reliable dedicated track, you have more certainty when you're scheduling a trip. And then frequency, we're looking at anywhere from 20 to 30 daily departures across the corridor. Some vary. So, whether you're looking at a Montreal to Toronto Express, Ottawa to Toronto Express, Ottawa to Montreal Express. We're still developing our service structure. Next slide, please. So just the brass tacks, an express from Ottawa to Toronto, we're looking at under 2 hours. Ottawa to Montreal in under an hour. So it really just brings communities closer together in Eastern Ontario. Next slide, please. There are 7 project outcomes that we're focused on. I just want to focus on a couple of them. The first is enabling safe intercity journeys. When we do high-speed rail, what a lot of folks don't appreciate is you can't have level crossings. They have to be either grade separations or closed off, because when you're going 315 kilometers an hour, any contact with a vehicle and animal can be catastrophic. So when high-speed rail projects look at risk, it looks very similar to how airlines look at risk. It has to be minimized to 0% as much as possible. The next one I want to focus on is minimizing financial costs to taxpayers. Every dollar we spend is a dollar that Canadians are earning and are providing through taxes. So we're very conscious of the public purse. And then lastly, by law, we're required to do duty to consult with our Indigenous communities. That's a bare minimum for us. We truly believe that high-speed rail is a mechanism to contribute to reconciliation. We have an engaged Indigenous relations team that is working with all 44 nations within the Ontario and Quebec borders to begin engagement with them early, often, and throughout. Next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier the impact with respect to our economy. During construction, we see an annual economic uplift of about 24.5 billion to 35 billion a year, or 1.1% of the country's GDP. And you can see it broken down into productivity, increased workforce participation, which I want to spend a few moments on in a moment, and tourism. High-speed rail can bring a lot of opportunity to Eastern Ontario and create a lot of tourism opportunities. It can also allow workers to travel across the corridor for different employment opportunities. Next slide. And then as we are, forging a new relationship with our southern neighbors, a project of the magnitude of ours, where it's, made for Canadians in Canada with Canadian labor and Canadian goods is really important. Although we're not a project of national importance yet, we are a project of national significance. We are projecting about over 50,000 jobs that can be created in delivering this project over the coming decade. Next slide, please. Where are we? Well, we are at the very early phases of the development of the project. What that means is the federal government provided $3.9 billion to design and budget and create the schedule for the delivery of the project. We have started our public engagement, hence why I'm here. We have started our Indigenous engagement, and we are in the process of commencing our impact assessment. As a federal project, we are required to go through the federal environmental assessment process, especially since we're bridging 2 provinces together. So the impact assessment will be very critical for us. We initially had scheduled that the development phase would be about 6 to 7 years. With the federal government's current ambition to make sure projects of these magnitudes are done quicker, we're looking to do the development phase within 4 years. And that isn't to cut corners in terms of engagement. It's more to find streamlined ways of getting the project through the approval process while still doing our due diligence. We will be breaking the project into segments, and we'll be delivering and building the project in those segments, but not one after the other. They'll be staggered, and once a segment's complete, it'll go into operation. Next slide, please. We have brought a private developer consortium with national and international experience. A lot of these companies have experience in developing high-speed rail in Europe, as well as heavy rail projects and rapid transit projects in Canada. Next slide, please. And I mentioned already that part of the development phase is getting the project ready to be shovel-ready within the next 4 years. And that way we're focused on actually building the project and staying on schedule. Next slide, please. I want to spend a moment on community benefits. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a Canadian project built with Canadian goods, 50,000 jobs. We want to ensure local communities are benefiting from this project. So we're in the process of developing local workforce targets, economically disadvantaged individuals, equity deserving groups. We want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to participate in the project. With respect to procurement, we want to make sure that we can create a fair and strong playing field for small and medium-sized businesses and local communities like Montague. We also want to make sure that, social enterprises, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses have an opportunity to participate in the project and really make it local as much as we can. And we also know that communities are going to be impacted by the project. Eastern Ontario is a wide geography. It connects Ottawa and Toronto, and the rail has to go through Eastern Ontario. Where, we don't know. But we know there can be communities that will be disrupted because of construction and be impacted because of the corridor. So our third pillar of community benefits will focus on neighborhood enhancements. And the example I like to use is if we need to use a public space for heavy machinery storage or staging, our requirement is to put the public space back to the way it was before we got there. What community benefits says is, in working with the municipality, how do we make it better than it was before we got there? How do we enhance it for the community and leave a positive legacy as we leave? Next slide, please. So over the last 6 or 7 weeks, we've been going to a number of councils and committees from Toronto all the way to the Quebec border. But in January, we will be starting a very comprehensive consultation program where we will be doing stakeholder roundtables, open houses. We'll have virtual open houses and online consultation with communities from across Ontario. As I mentioned earlier, we don't have an alignment, but we have a wide corridor. And the idea is to go out to to communities across the province of Ontario and Quebec, get feedback. No one knows their communities better than the people that live in it. What are the red flags? What are the landmarks that we should avoid? What are the recreational trails we need to be aware of? What are the snowmobile trails that we need to be aware of? All of those things, that type of feedback will inform the technical work that's being done to help go from a wide corridor to a much more narrow corridor. And then we'll come back out in 2027 as well with a more narrow corridor to get additional feedback. Our objective is for you to be sick of us in a good way, is kind of our goal. Next slide, please. And again, these are engagement principles that are very important to me and to the team. We have to walk the walk and not just say we believe in local focus, openness, and responsibility and respectfulness, but we'll do that. We'll show that with our actions. But for us, it's really important that we are open, that we are transparent, and that we engage. And and my commitment to you today is to come back anytime you'd like to get more information, one-on-ones. We're happy to engage and as best as we can take you behind the curtain on how things are progressing. Next slide, please. I think that's it. And we'll
open it up for questions, council.
Sure. So you don't have, there is no sort of route or thought of route. I'm sure you're getting lobbied to say we want to close to our communities and all of that kind of stuff. I guess on that same note, I mean, you're going to go, I think, in the town. I know they've been lobbying you for a while to make sure that there's a connection piece to that too as well. So like, is that sort of, what's the thought process, the hold up on the route side of things? Is it just because like,
so we're looking, great question. We're looking at creating a 10-kilometer corridor that will help inform the final route, because you can have multiple iterations of what a route could look like. And our approach was, we don't want to just put 3 lines on a map and ask communities, which ones do you hate the least, right? We know that coming into Ottawa, there's only so many ways you can go into Ottawa, and exit, there's only so many ways you can exit Ottawa. Just like in Toronto, there's only so many ways you can enter the city of Toronto. But we want to make sure that we're not imposing a route right off the bat. We want to understand restraints, restrictions, concerns to better align with the route. When you're looking at Ottawa to Peterborough, for example, you can do a northern route, you know, but that's Canadian Shield. The constructability is going to be harder. You could do a southern route, but you're going to be going through a lot more farmland. So there are many options that we're thinking about, but we want to hear from councils, we want to hear from stakeholders and the public before we go and throw a few lines on the map.
And could there be different lines and different, like, you could have a route going this way and a route going like?
Over time.
All that whole idea is, right, is kind of coming over time.
Yeah, Spain is a great example where they created a spine right off the bat, and then over time you saw them branch out.
Yeah.
So right now our focus is one line. How we get from Toronto to Quebec City and the 5 stations in between, we don't know yet. Right now, and we're being open and honest, the government's mandated 7 station areas. The more stations you add, the slower high speed becomes, right? So if we were to ever add an 8th station, for example, it needs to have a technical rationale. It needs to have ridership benefits, and it needs to have a revenue benefit, especially if you're going to decrease the journey savings. Because ideally for us, we want it to be as fast as possible to get folks from Ottawa to Montreal or Ottawa to Toronto.
So I guess connecting pieces too, right? So like, if like right now we're saying if it's not necessarily going through our community, but is there a slower, I'm gonna say the slower via train might bring you to that station in order to get you onto those sort of ideas? Is that sort of being floated?
So I think you raise a really important point on interconnectivity. So Montague, Smiths Falls, for example, you're an hour from Ottawa, so or less, depending how fast we're driving. But there's a benefit, there's a direct benefit to an Ottawa station. And the question is, how do we get ridership from this area to the station in a convenient way? It could be driving, it could be shuttles. There are different ways that we can explore to make sure that it is a viable option, because we are competing with the car. We are in some respects competing or partnering with airlines, but it has to be a viable option for someone like yourself that says, okay, if I take high speed, how am I going to get there? If this is too hard, then I don't want to do it. I'm just going to get into my car and drive. So it has to be easy. It has to be convenient. We also know that the Via Rail service is an important service that connects Eastern Ontario communities, and that service won't change. Hopefully, it continues to improve year over year, but we see it as an added benefit to the service that we're developing.
And I guess my last question really is about the trail network. So you made a reference about saying understanding that like the trail networks right now are pretty well mapped.
Yeah.
And you can download an app, everything is mapped
Absolutely.
pretty easily. So like, is there, what other sort of pieces are you looking for from the trail networks and the trail side of things and the snowmobile, all that information is pretty well readily available. What more would you look for on that?
No, it's again, a really great question. If we ever needed to, infringe on trail networks, is that off the table?
There it is there, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And would communities be okay with us building a new trail network and we don't know if we are doing that, it's just an example. So
It's all high level, so I get it.
It's all high level. We want to follow, when you see the corridor online, you'll see that we're trying to follow highways. We're trying to follow existing rail corridors, hydro corridors, or large trails like the Prescott Russell Trail, for example. We're trying to minimize as much as we can the impact on land, but sometimes there will be a feasibility where you may need to go onto a path, or at least inquire about going onto a path. And is that feasible from a community perspective?
That's really interesting. Yeah, okay, I might have something else, but I can think of it for a second, but yeah.
So how much of this is gonna be like an elevated? It's a lot more expensive, obviously, to be elevated, but if you wanna get around all the trails, all the other stuff in Europe and in Japan especially, a lot of things are all elevated above
Yep.
that. So is that something still on the table? or-
Very much so. As part of the design process, you're looking at tunneling options in urban areas. You're looking at elevated options when tunneling options aren't possible. You're looking at just a flat straight line where possible. All of it's on the table as we design the project. Obviously, budget changes kind of scope. We're already starting to engage the OFA and the Christian Farmers Federation around requirements in rural communities. Because we know that, when you're laying track in rural areas, that it'll have impacts for farmers on how they move around their lands. So we want to understand what that looks like. But elevated guideways are also part of the design that we're currently looking at.
Yeah, so just to follow up, I'm from Vancouver, so I'm used to elevated, tunneling and flat all at the same time, so. And it works out when you're going through certain areas and all that kind of stuff. One other, question I had for you though is affordability. I know in, Toronto, when they built that train from, the airport to
The Up
downtown.
Express.
Yeah, nobody went on it because it was way too much money.
Yeah.
Like even as a business person before I retired, I wouldn't get on there, I'd take a cab.
Yeah.
Because it was way too expensive for what it was, and you'd get a cost of there, time you got off at the station. But, and then they had to cut almost the price in half to get ridership. Because the people that were actually on it were the people who worked there. Well, you had commuters, but you had people who worked there.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
they couldn't afford to pay $40 one way, like it was craziness. So I guess that'll all get taken into account, because if you don't make it affordable, nobody rides it, and then you don't get the economic benefits that you had in a couple of your slides.
Bang on. Affordability is gonna be key. It won't be one fare.
Yeah.
For everyone. You have seniors, you have students, you have families. It's gonna have to be a dynamic fare that can compete with cars and that can compete with the airlines.
Yeah.
If we're not affordable, we're not gonna be successful.
Yeah, because you look at VIA and some of their rates, it's too expensive, so no one rides it, you know, and I know too that it's. Being from Vancouver, no one rode VIA because you had to go through Saskatchewan, so no one's gonna do it, but it's one of those things where if it's not affordable, it's a waste of effort, to be honest.
It really comes down to affordability, frequency,
Yeah,
and reliability. You get those three done right, it'll be a successful project.
yeah, so reliability, don't do anything Ottawa did.
Go talk to VA.
Yeah, don't talk to me, yeah. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you very much.
Going on to reliability, you guys are, the intent is to use the electric line above head, overhead, correct?
Yeah, catenaries.
Okay, so how, because I already know the answer to the question, it's never been tested in this climate. The closest you have right now is in Washington, which is very vast difference from what ours is. How are we going to not do what Ottawa is doing, being broken down for a month every winter?
Yeah. An important question. I'm not the engineer, so bear with me on my answer. But the advantage of having a consortium that we do, there are other climates in the world that are similar to ours. For example, in Japan, where they do have extreme cold weather in the northern parts of the island. So we have to look at others to make sure that we are building for Canada, for Canadian environments. We in Canada, and there aren't many other countries like ours where you can go from -40 to +40 in 6 months. So you're trying to deal with both extremes. And you know, when you're at +40, steel starts warping, right? -40 things just freeze down. So there are a lot of new technologies that can be developed to minimize that risk, but I don't have the specific technical answers.
The other thing is, this has been being done, Washington, Brightline, HSR, so that they've all been going vastly over budget and well over time frame.
Yeah.
Have we learned enough over all these ones to make this one actually feasible and work? Or will this be another one that's projected for 2033 and it's gonna be, I think they're now saying it'll be 2050 for that one?
Yeah, I can't speak specifically to the challenges around the projects that you listed, but we see a lot of infrastructure projects, transportation infrastructure projects go above schedule and above budget or over budget. The one thing that Alto provides is it's a focused Crown Corp on one project. And we have a consortium that it's a joint alliance model where we're working together to deliver it. We have folks from Metrolinx here in Ontario, from High Speed Rail in Spain, from High Speed Rail in France that have gone through these experiences. So there's a lot of lessons learned coming in, but we're very, very committed to being on schedule and being on budget, and we're hyper focused on it.
One more question. Who's going to be reviewing the budgetary line by line items to make sure that we're getting what that gets paid
Yeah.
for?
So we are a Crown Corporation, and we are accountable to the Minister of Transportation. We're also accountable to Parliament. Whether there's hearings and what have you, we were in the federal budget this year. So we're accountable to the Minister of Transportation. He's our shareholder, or the federal government's our shareholder. And we will have to show, the word escapes me, but that we're doing our due diligence.
That's it.
Any further questions?
No more for me, thank you.
Thank you.
I can't thank you all enough for taking the time to meet on a special session. We really very much appreciate it.
Will we get like free tickets or anything?
Yeah, pay for your ticket.
You can't take bribes? We're gonna give you one of the.
Still
I get the right, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks an awful lot. It was fun.
So moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Crosby, that presentation by Peace Paz, Alto Senior Director of Public Works and Government Relations, Ontario, regarding the proposed Alto high-speed rail network being received as information. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, seconded by Councillor Abbas, that bylaw 4184-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its special meeting held on December 8th, 2025, be read first, second, and third time, and passed, signed, and sealed this 8th day of December, 2025. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council adjourn the special meeting of council of December 8th, 2025 at 3:27 p.m. until Tuesday, December 16th, 2025 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair. All in favor? And carried.